Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 90 Minutes to Close the Loop, the web series by Close the Glass Loop. You are watching episode 10, From Collection to Recycling, Can We Avoid Losses? It's great to see so many of you joining today. We had over 150 registrations with attendees joining from 32 different countries. I see that we have maintained our special connection with Portugal. And it's also great to welcome, for the first time, I believe, attendees from Cabo Verde and Eswatini. The value chain is also well represented for this episode with participants from the glass manufacturing sector, the waste management sector, recycling, as well as EPR schemes. What's interesting for this episode also is the interest from academia and research centers, which shows that there is also an element of technology and R&D when it comes to glass recycling, in addition to the inherent properties of the material itself. As usual, we welcome your active participation in these episodes. To the right of your screen, you will find the chat tab. You will also find the questions tab. I will be monitoring both throughout the discussion and raising your questions and comments with speakers. You can also view the list of attendees, and that might also give you a sense of who else is out there more specifically. We also have a poll open for you on Slido, where we are asking the question, is there a weak point to glass recycling? You can select up to 3 answers from product design, efficiency in sorting, collection quality, unreliable data and statistics, overly stringent manufacturing requirements, or you can answer that there are no weak points at all. Up to you, and we will reveal the answers to the poll later on, and the link is also provided in the chat. So please go ahead and engage with that poll. So, can we avoid losses? How is the glass recycling value chain working to optimize the output of waste materials entering the closed loop? How, in practical operational terms, do we give life to the infinite cycles of glass packaging? Having certain material properties does help, let's face it. But packaging materials, especially glass packaging, which is the archetypal consumer packaging serving food, beverage, cosmetic, and pharmaceutical applications, starts its waste journey in the consumer's hands. And I'm sure that we'll see through the course of this session that this can represent a challenge for any recycling value chain. And in fact, to get some insights, Close the Glass Loop released a study earlier this year on the performance of packaging glass recycling in Europe. The idea was to better understand where the packaging glass waste materials were coming from and where in the end does the glass get effectively recycled. We performed an online survey and gathered data from glass cullet recycling facilities. These are operators who are in the business of receiving glass waste materials and making a secondary raw material available for different applications. It's the first time that such an exercise was carried out, but we already got a really good representative sample with 17 countries covered and more than half of the total tonnage collected for recycling in Europe for the year 2019. Throughout this session, we will be making references to this study, and if you want, you can download it directly from the Documents tab, again, to the right of the live stream. It has a lot of information broken down also by country and by region. But before we actually discuss the business of glass recycling, I would like to start this session with another very important player when it comes to talking about losses in the collection and recycling of packaging. Every year, there is a lot of anticipation before the publication of the Eurostat statistics for the recycling of packaging. And we are honored to be joined by Gomez Prieto. He is the team leader for the Green Deal, Circular Economy and Waste Statistics at the European Commission's Eurostat office. So Eurostat recently published the 2021 data for packaging, and Oscar will try and give us some insights into what's behind the data. After his presentation, we have reserved some time for Q&A, and I know that Eurostat generally raises some eyebrows with some of you, so please get ready to type in your questions in the comments, in the chat, and I'll be looking out for that. And so, Oscar, welcome, thanks for joining, and the floor is yours. A quick unmute maybe, Oscar?
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much. It is a pleasure. Thank you, Jean-Paul. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. It's I think the second time that I participate to one of these sessions. I find them extremely interesting for us. So my team is working, among other things, into packaging and packaging waste data collection. And it is, and we have, so our approach is we receive data that is collected from industry, among others, by environmental protection agencies and environment ministries, and we receive this data, and then we do a process of validation of this data, but it is always kind of far from the actual process. So it is now this is an opportunity for us to learn how things are done. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I would like to start. So the clicker should work. Doesn't work, the clicker for me. Now it worked. So, okay, I'm going to talk briefly about the reporting, the calculation point, then I would like to talk about the effect of change of calculation point, and I will make some similarities with plastic, where it's an area that we have, where because of the plastic on resource, we spend a lot of time in it. Then I will talk about reusable packaging. And finally, I got a question before this meeting about the Eurostat EU average. So where does this data come from? And I try to clarify that, and then we will open the floor for questions. Okay, well, if somebody, yes, thank you. Basically, packaging and packaging waste data reporting is collected under Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive. The data we collect is under what we call the 2018 package, where legislation was changed to include it changed calculation point for recycling, so in particular to exclude non-target materials. And there I just copied the sentence from the Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive that explains what is the calculation point, and we do this for different materials. So it's not only, as I mentioned before, so it's not only glass, but we also do it for wooden packaging, cardboard, aluminium. So basically, metal and plastic. So if I go to the next one. So what is our role? My team does the validation of Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive reporting obligations for all packaging materials. Then we have an additional role that is linked to the plastic on resource. I will come back to that, which is the verification of non-packaging waste. Then we develop how we do this validation. It is done by means of developing guidance documents that are available on our website. Then we develop the questionnaires for data reporting, which are kind of strict. So you cannot really report outside of the structure we have, which then helps in the process of validation. And then when we receive the data, what we do, we have a set of arithmetic rules that are called validation rules, where we basically check that the data is correct, or basically these automatic rules will raise automatic concerns, and then we will decide on whether to reject the file or to come back to the country to ask these questions. Then we also perform analysis on the data, cross-checks with all the data sources, time series analysis, and then we also look into together with the data, we receive the quality reports where the methodology for collecting the data and for preparing the figures we receive are explained, and this we also validate. We also ask questions to countries when something is unclear. And we finally, as a statistical office, we have the role and the mandate to disseminate the results to the public. Okay, I'm trying to change. Thank you. So what about the calculation point? So I give you the example of plastic, because the process in plastic has been different as compared to the rest of the packaging materials. Why? Because there was the introduction in the multi-annual financial framework of the plastic on resource since 2021 there is a new source of revenue to the EU budget, which is based on 0.8 euros per kilo of plastic packaging not recycled. And this is based on the same data collection as the glass packaging is sent to Eurostat. Then what happens is that the Commission, who is led by Eurostat, then inspects member states. So we need to make sure, as this has financial implications, then we need to make sure that there is a fair treatment and a comparable method between member states. So then what we do is we come to the member states and we inspect them to make sure that the data is done in a proper way and that data is comparable and that the methods are traceable and so on. So then in this Commission implementing regulation that I mentioned in the slides, this is where we have defined a number of, so it's basically the format that where we define the data we receive from the plastic on resource, but we ask for corrections. Like, for example, when we are talking about waste generation based on placing on the market, then there is the need to correct because of the minimis, because of free riders, because of humidity of residues. And then we also make sure that the recycling is done at the calculation point and the non-target materials are removed. Okay, so now what I try to do is okay, so what is the calculation point and how it has affected the change in the data? So what I have done is I have compared in this graph. There's the scale is a logarithmic scale, so this is why the 40 seems close to the 75. But you see that plastic, which is the purple one, has gone down in 2020 to 37.6. These are kilograms. This is the recycling rate. And then, so it has declined in plastic. Okay, in 2020 there was the effect of COVID, and there were recycling facilities that were closed. But still, we don't see the same in glass. So it seems stable. And this is a question I also have maybe for you: is why? How can we explain that this has become stable? Also, the 74.9. I will explain later that is still a Eurostat estimate. It could be bigger. For the 2021 data. Then I try to go to the next one. So in 2020 was the first time that we started receiving data on reusable packaging, which is expected to be relevant for glass packaging. First data collection was not, so we collected last year in 2022, and the quality was low, a lot of empty values, and only 7 member states had data of enough quality. In 2021, we are a bit better. So still only 16 member states are of enough quality. But for example, rotations are estimates in most of the cases. And the plan we have is to publish reusable packaging somewhere in 2024. And there is high demand to have access to this data. Just to give you a flavor, here I just put, what I did in this graph was to put the sum. So what you see here is basically the fraction of rotations. So I consider that one rotation is equivalent to one single-use glass. And then I sum both, and then I saw what is the share of the rotations, and according to the data we receive, where we, as I said, we are not sure yet about the quality, but there you can see that it can be very relevant in some countries, and actually it means 50% in the EU average, so it seems quite high. And you also, just to finish, you have this question about how we do the EU average. So why you have this question is because if you just sum the countries that are available and then you calculate the recycling rate, then you get 77%, while we have 74.9%. So where does the 74.9% come? It's because we have a standard procedure in waste statistics, which is based on carry over the data of the previous year's national values to the year, not for the publication, but for making the EU totals and the EU aggregates. So then we only do this when 60% of last year's value and 55% of member states are present in the new year. Then we do this, and then how we do the recycling rate? We do this EU estimate for the total recycling divided by the total estimate for the EU waste generation. I reckon that we have that we are carrying over. In the case of glass packaging, we are carrying over data from 2019 to 20, and from 20 to 21 from Greece, Bulgaria, and Poland. So somehow, when we receive the final data, we will figure out probably that the truth is somewhere in between these two figures, the 75 or 74.9 and 77%. So I think that's all I wanted to say, and I'm ready to answer questions.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Oscar, for giving some insights on this. I mean, the truth is somewhere in between. Maybe the truth is out there somewhere. Maybe maybe it's not even in between. But you highlight already some points, right? There's the calculation point. So there's a move in any case in the legislation from one calculation point to another. So that's creating a difference. Now, do you think that in 2021, the member states that have been reporting into Eurostat are in principle all reporting according to the new calculation point? Is that the assessment that we should be making?
This is what I expect. So this is what we do in our process of doing the data validation. When there is, so we come back individually to each of the countries, and then we ask, especially when we see that there is let's say that the trend is not what you expect. You normally would expect. I mean, it's a bit complicated to assess, because sometimes you need to consider that how much is generated, how much is being placed on the market. And for example, if the method is based on placing on the market, and then you need to consider how much is recycled. So normally we look at several years trend, and then if we see that this is deviating from this, so we have the trend from the last year, and we also analyze the trend, for example, of the past 4 years. And then if we see that this is going in that direction, that is not what we expect to be, then we contact the country, and normally we seek for replies. So far, we are still in the process of validation. We are not yet finished with all the countries, but for the majority of the countries, the results of our validation is that the results are correct. Is that the method is in line. So I think at this moment we have 6 or 7 countries where we have either data missing or there are still outstanding questions.
Okay, so that's on the shift of the calculation point. The other aspect of this is indeed the difference between the EU average and the average of all the different national data in the Eurostat database. What you're saying is that this is not some kind of loss rate that you're applying, or some kind of average loss rate that you're applying. You're saying that this is a standard correction factor that you've been doing on the EU average. So does that mean that in past years, the EU average would have been different from the average of national reports?
Yes. So for example, in 2020, so basically, just to explain it again. So our method, we don't do any correction to the recycling rate. The thing is, our calculation takes into account all the countries, all the member states, and so it means that if we do gap filling for doing the EU aggregate on the basis of data from previous years, and we don't do any trend or anything. We just use it. Why? Because our purpose is the EU total, and the experience it shows us that most of the times this estimate is not that bad. So the effort needed to try to do a trend, maybe in the end you make an effort to go in that direction, and then you get a worse estimate. So in the end, so we are not applying any correction. But now replying to your question about is does the EU average, the EU recycling rate change? Yes, each time we update the database, it is likely to change, because it means that we have new countries, and it means that then we calculate for the current year. But if we have revisions from previous years, then we calculate also so for example, the three countries that we don't have the data for 2020, they deliver now 2020, then we will revise the average of 20 and 21 as well.
Okay, so it's not at all a correction. It's in fact your best estimate with regard the lack of data that you currently have for 2021. So okay, that's much clearer for me. Another point that you raised was actually largely around the denominator. You know, there's this idea of packaging waste generated, and there are all sorts of correction elements there to try and figure out what this is. So I think this is a big dark gray area, right? The denominator. In fact, in many ways, much darker than the numerator to some extent. But this obviously then affects the actual rates, which are then what will in the end motivate the European Commission to then activate these early warning reports to member states. Do you worry sometimes that the quality of the data is misleading the European Commission in its early warning report assessments? Do you think there are issues there, or do you think that by and large the early warning reports are for those countries that indeed, have the biggest difficulties?
We are. So I would like to reply to things. So first, I would like to reply to go back to your previous question about so how much about the data and the corrections, right? So and how sure we are about the data we receive. Now there is a difference between the work we do in the plastic on resource, for example, in plastic, that compared to what we do in glass. Why? Because in plastic we are going to countries, and we have an expert group that is dedicated to plastic packaging. And then we discuss already do you have free riders, how you estimate them? We have methodological discussions, specific groups online to discuss about free riders, others about de minimis, others about a number of things that in many cases are affecting, as you say, waste generation. We also have another ones about waste composition analysis. Now the level of, and then in addition to that, we come and we inspect the countries. So we go to the countries and we ask questions on how you do this, how you do this, how you estimate this, but are you considering this thing or not? Is it packaging or not? So then in the end, so in that sense, the level of knowledge that we have from Eurostat of the data is detailed in the case of glass or in the case of any packaging material except that for plastic. Of course, with plastic, we are realizing that there is, as you say, there is a gray zone about corrections done. There is another big gray zone about the loss, the non-material losses, in some cases, especially linked to exports of material to be exported. Probably this is less relevant for glass. But when you have exports, then it's more difficult to know which are the losses, and especially when you use brokers to deal with waste. Then again, this makes it also difficult to trace. Now, on the early warning reports. So early warning reports, to me, we are involved in we are not the ones that are holding the pen of the early warning reports. We are consulted. These are done by European by DG Environment by European Environment Agency, but we are consulted. And can these gray zones or these values? So if the recycling rate instead of being 50, should it be 46 in one country? Can this be misleading? And I would say that the uncertainty is there. It's clearly there, but I think normally what we see is that you get more rosy figures when you do less. So in principle, the countries that are there, that are selected, are normally those that should be there. Maybe there are others that escape. That are at the verge, at the very limit. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And then just a final one then onto the numerator. It's a question also coming from the audience. So in your first slide, you talk about the definition. So what is recycling? And there are a certain number of final applications that are considered to be recycling. Nevertheless, there is a variation in the level of intensity of the recycling activity that you need to do. You know, if you want to send, in the case of glass, some material into road construction, it's not quite the same activity as when you're sending it back in a closed loop manufacturing system, right? The level of quality is very different, the demands are very different. Eurostat obviously doesn't make any distinction between these different applications. You're either recycling or you're not. But is there a way of maybe, knowing a little bit more about what happens more specifically? Is there actually data that is hidden or maybe not made public in one way or the other? Or is it just a general recycling figure that you're getting?
Yeah, we are getting a general recycling figure. I need to be very office in my reply. So the mandate of the statistical office is to make all the data that is possible to be made public, to make public. So in the case of packaging, we don't, except I explained that we are working on reusable packaging, and that we will need to publish when the quality is good enough. But normally we are not holding any data on packaging waste statistics. So I reckon there are different types of recycling. We do have another data collection, which is what we do every 2 years, which is waste statistics regulation. And there we do have some kind of, so for example, you mentioned backfilling. So we have backfilling. So that type of, in recycling, we have that separation. And but there the problem is that sometimes you are not, so basically the glass packaging is not, we don't have a category for glass packaging. So you can have some idea what countries are doing, but probably it's not going to cover completely the glass packaging. So yeah, so unfortunately we don't have such data, but this, that we also have our president of commission has made this announcement that we want to reduce by 25% reporting obligations. So the obvious question, the obvious answer would have been, where maybe there is a need to include the reporting obligation, but this would seem difficult at the moment.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's also a question of definitions and categorization. So what one country might consider backfilling, another might consider absolutely recycling in another form, and this might create quite a few hazy areas also then on the numerator to add to the ones in the denominator. Lots of work still to be done on waste statistics, but thanks a lot for having been with us, Oscar, and given us some insights. And I think you'll be staying to follow the discussion. Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you.
Brilliant. So having had this overview of the Eurostat database and some of the challenges on data, we will now head into the actual business of glass recycling. So we'll start with a series of 4 very short presentations just to give you a flavor of what's happening in Europe. And then we'll move into our panel discussion. So first up, I would like to invite Nuno Vieira. He is the Sustainability Manager at BA Glass, and he will tell us a little bit about BA Glass's vision on glass recycling. Nuno, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Jean-Paul. So it's really a privilege to be here and be part of this episode about glass collection and recycling. And let me first extend my greetings to all the audience and to the guests that will be in the presentations, and also for the panel. For sure, I'm trying to jump for the next slide. Okay, thank you. Okay, for sure, everyone in the audience is very well informed about the benefits of glass, and now it is in fact a sustainable option for packaging. Glass also holds a very potential not only for its functionality but also for its recyclability. We can mention a few benefits, but I will highlight 2. That is the infinitely recycling, and also it's a packaging that is proved to be safe. And I will bring also this perspective from BA Glass, that we have a very clear view, and also we are deeply committed in sustainability. Last year, we were scored in the CDP, the Carbon Disclosure Project, as A. So it's the highest score, and we are really proud. That shows us that we are engaged in the decarbonization, not only in our direct emissions, but also in our value chain. In the early year of 2022, we have also established our goals, and they were approved by the Science-Based Targets in the most ambitious path of 1.5 degree. And we see that as a midterm of a long-term objective that is to become carbon neutral by 2050. I'm trying to switch the slide. Okay, thank you. In BA Glass, we have a very clear view, and we are very deeply committed, not only with only one initiative, but plenty of initiatives, because we see it that the decarbonization of our supply chain or value chain will be made by several initiatives. Let me highlight the fact that we are moving for electrification, but in the other side, we are also looking for alternatives for the fuels that we are using today. We are looking for renewable sources for gases. Also, the lightweighting is a perspective and an initiative that we are very focused, and let me highlight here the tight collaboration that we are working with our customers to find a lightweight that we can also mention as the right weight for the bottles. The other alternative, the other initiative that we are implementing is about the scope 3 and all their emissions that we should focus, because they are the indirect emissions, but we should also consider as a point to improve. And going now to the topic that we are discussing today about raw materials. From one side, we are looking for alternative raw materials that are non-carbon based, but from the other side, we are looking for increasing our recycled glass content in our recipes. I will ask to jump to the next slide. Thank you. I think everyone knows about the impact about using recycled content in our recipes. Every time we increase in 10 points the cullet rate in our furnaces, we'll have a drop in 5% of our CO2 emissions. So it's very important and it is very critical. And that's why we have established a very strong commitment for the cullet treatment. I'm trying to change. Can you move? Thank you. These are some figures from the cullet treatment. So for already 30 years that we are focused, and we were the starters of the recycling business of cullets, and we are keeping that promise to keep the business running. And nowadays in Iberia we have 2 cullet treatment facilities, one in Portugal and the other one in Portugal, that allow us to incorporate more than 37% of cullet in our recipes. And I will bring here 2 initiatives. So Jean-Paul, you challenge us to talk about one initiative. I will bring you 2 initiatives, one from the recycled side and the other one from the collection side. Starting by the collection side, I will jump into the next slide. From the collection side, for sure, this initiative from the Close the Glass Loop is really important. We are engaged with this initiative. Also, we are very close working with local authorities, because a lot is to be done also there. And from the other side, we are challenging our customers, because they are the most close contact that we have with the final consumers. And for sure, this will be a critical point in the future to engage and to have the visibility about the benefits of glass and also the collection that we know that in some countries that we are operating today, we need to improve the collection. And I will bring an initiative from Portugal. I will ask to jump to the next slide, where we focus about the Vidro Mais platform. It's a platform where we are partnering with local authorities, with the government, with other companies from glass, to increase the collection rate with very specific initiatives And for example, I will highlight the fact that in Portugal, we know that the Oreca channel is a point where we need to improve, and there are specific actions being developed in the Oreca channel to increase the collection for glass. And from the other side, from recycling, we are always improving our capability, our efficiency. And I will ask to jump to the final slide, please. And we are concluding this year a huge investment that we made in our inspection machines, and this example is a machine and an upgrade that we are doing that will improve our capability for rejection. And for example, it will allow us today to segregate several contaminants in the glass that we don't should have in the cullet. And for this example is the heat resistance glass. And from my side, John Paul, thank you for this moment. And sorry about this technology problem. We need to make a problem solving in the future.
It's all part of the fun of being live. So thanks a lot, Nuno. And yeah, there's a very specific challenge in Portugal that we are well aware of. Also looking at Eurostat, for instance, we know that there is a way to go. So it's good that you're onto that. There's also the collection is a very important starting point. So thanks for reminding us of that. And Nuno, you will not be part of the panel later, but thanks for having presented today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then we'll go to Stefano Casano. He will be presenting for Veralia. He's the Corporate Director of Production Materials Purchasing. So Stefano, yeah, can you tell us a little bit about Veralia's activity on glass recycling?
Yes, do you hear me, by the way? Okay,
yes.
That's already a good starting point. Good day all, by the way. We talk about Veralia figures, and I will give you a quick snapshot of what do we do, what did we do, and what we are going to do in the future. Just to give you the first figure, Veralia achieved 55.6% of external cullet in its global production. What does it mean? To make it easy, each container we do sell our customer is made by, on average, global basis, by 55.7% of recycled glass. This is the final 22 data at the end of December 2022. That means round about 1 more point versus 2021 result, and almost 7 points more if we compare to 3 years before, to 2019, which represents the reference year that was 49% at the time. But if we dig in the matter by region, and if we focus on Western Europe and Western European facility, Veralia achieved in the same period, the end of 2022, more than 62% of external cullet integration, meaning again, the content in the average container has been sold to the customer is more than 62% of recycled glass. All in all, to talk about how much emissions we saved from 2019 to 2022, we saved almost 100,000 tons of CO2, which is linked to almost 400,000 of additional cullet we were able to integrate in our furnaces in the same period. Please move to the next slide. I think you know vertical integration for cullet and our business is one of our key driver, meaning we have some treatment facility around the world. But what I would like to emphasize is that this is not enough. We have our own facilities, the one we directly manage, the one we manage together with our partners in JV, but we also have our external suppliers, and we need to have a common approach, both to internal and to external ones. What does it mean in a snapshot? It means improvement of technology, of equipment, to take advantage of the best-in-class technologies. And technologies, as everybody knows, have been developing a lot in the last 10 years, and it will be the same in the years to come, I guess. Care on the process to get the highest quality standards, and this is the topic of today, to minimize losses. What does minimize losses means? It means also minimize costs in the end. And last but not least, but very important, I would say, to have the same quality approach everywhere with every counterpart all around the world. That's a key. The same quality approach, the same way, the same criteria to judge and to control the incoming material. I think that's all from my side, Jean-Paul.
Brilliant. Thank you, Stefano. It's not quite all, because you'll be with us for the panel, and I might want to know a little bit more about how you achieve these really high, effectively recycled content, targets. That's very, very impressive rates. So, and that's actually what we're trying to do here, the closed loop recycling. So hopefully there'll be some recipe for success that we can take out of that. Thank you, Stefano. We will then hear now from Benedict Heitman. He is the Managing Director at Reiling Glass Recycling. Benedict will be telling us a little bit about Reiling's activities on glass recycling. Please, Benedict, over to you.
Yeah, hello from my side. Hopefully you can hear me. So it's working perfect. So thank you, Jean-Paul, for inviting me. Hello to the audience. We have a very short introduction of Reiling, what we are doing. So Reiling at a glance. So let's see if it's working. Yeah, it is working. So first of all, I want to introduce myself because I think I'm not that well known. I'm 38 years old, and I studied environmental process engineering and recycling. And then I started to get in contact with glass. It's 10 years ago. I wrote my master thesis about a very important topic, even now, fine grain production during container glass processing. Then I started to work in the research and development department. There it was always very important to optimize the recycling. This is our goal today, and this is what we are discussing later on, how we can avoid losses during the recycling. And I'm more the technical guy, so I always try to find technical solutions to avoid losses. In the last 2 years, I work in the management. I'm in the technical direction. And there is one sentence which is always, from Mr. Reiling. They said always, today's progress is tomorrow's standards, and this is something, I believe in. So maybe some facts about the group, Reiling Group of companies. So it's a family-run recycling company in its 4th generation. So it's committed to the collection and recycling of a wide range of material. Today we have the focus on the glass recycling. So we do on different facilities. We recycle container glass and flat glass. This is one stream of the recycling. Then we also do the PET bottle recycling on different locations. Then we have complete other topics. It's electronics, it's photovoltaic recycling. We actually do in Münster, we do wood recycling, and we are producer of foam glass so far. So we have 650 employees in Europe, and the goal is to close the cycle as good as possible and conserve resources. When we discuss about the glass recycling, I just want to show the different locations we have so far. So in general, we have 19 sites in Germany and in abroad so far. So in Germany, we do glass recycling in Gladbeck, in Lünen, in Marienfeld, in Lauenburg, in Osterwedding, and in Torgau. When we go to the east, we do at 2 locations glass recycling in Poland. We have in the north, we have 2 locations in Denmark and 1 location in Sweden. When we discuss about photovoltaic, it's Münster, and the other ones are PET and foam glass production. So we collect and process over 1 million metric tons of glass. Our goal is always to process it in a closed loop. So we try to keep the material as good as possible, and we try to expand in a dynamical way our recycling capacities, and of course we are relying on new technologies so that we can fulfill the quality and quantity requirements in the future, because I think there is the quality is more and more important, especially when we have a very high cullet rate, which is very positive. So we always try to invest in these areas. So I think this is just a first rough overview, and I think in the panel discussion we will get a little bit closer or more in details. So this was from my side what I want to say. Jean-Paul.
Brilliant. Benedict, I'm also 38 years old, so we have that in common. And I'm getting there on glass recycling, but I still think you have a couple of more years experience. Brilliant. Thank you. We'll be hearing more from that in the panel very soon. Thanks, Benedict. And so let's move then to the final of this series of presentations. I would like then to introduce Ruud Dorscheit, if I say that correctly. He is the Manager Technical Support Glass Recycling at Sibelco. Ruud, what's Sibelco's vision on glass recycling?
Thank you, Jean-Paul. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to also give a presentation on our company. There it is. Thank you very much. Let me start by just giving a short introduction to the company Sibelco, as we also have several people in the audience today who are not directly linked to the glass recycling nor the glass production industry, and therefore might not know the company. Sibelco is a company which was founded in 1872, meaning we have celebrated our 150-year anniversary last year. In those now being 151 years, we've grown from a Belgium-based company to what is nowadays an international company active in 32 countries with an extensive multi-mineral portfolio. Looking from a glass industry perspective, the main minerals we supply and also materials we supply are silica, feldspatic minerals like naphthalene and feldspar, and of course recycled glass, cullet. Next to that, we also supply olivine and clays to other markets like the ceramic and the metallurgical industries. The glass industry was always one of the first, or it was one of the first industries we started supplying, meaning we have a long historical collaboration with this market. And in this historical relationship, we've moved together with the glass industry from minerals to more and more recycled glass in order to produce new glass containers. For that reason, we've also grown extensively with the glass recycling business, where we currently operate 23 facilities divided over 6 countries, being Belgium, France, the United Kingdom, Italy, Poland, Estonia, and where we treat more than 3.5 million tons of materials. We have accomplished this growth by, let's say, 3 main pillars, being building new plants, acquisition of existing companies in the glass recycling industry, and the third one being innovation by developing new products and improving our processes. Let me give you some examples of each of these 3 pillars. The greenfield construction, the example would be our San Cesario plant in Italy. This is a glass recycling facility designed to intake several feed materials. The plant was commissioned in 2022, so last year, and based on the latest technologies, it produces high quality glass cullet grades. Then we also have, let's say, brownfield improvements. So by acquiring a glass recycling facility, and it was quite a basic facility, we upgraded the plant by, again, the latest technologies, and we brought this plant in 2023, so this year, to what we call the Sibelco standards. enabling the glass producers to intake more and also a higher quality glass cullet. And then the third one is what we call innovation, by producing, and here it's mentioned as low iron flint cullet, you could also call it extra white cullets, by producing that product from the same incoming material flows in our glass recycling facility, so where we also produce the flint and the cullets, we enable the specialty container glass producers, like for instance the luxury bottle producers or flaconized perfume bottle producers, to intake also external cullets, which was in the past not possible. And by this, we enable them to also use recycled materials in their glass products that they produce. Now, we've also recently launched our product, which we call Glass C Carbon. This material used to be a byproduct of our glass recycling facilities, which could not be used by the glass producers. However, by collaboration with the glass producers and further processing and stabilizing the product, we enable glass producers to reduce or even exclude the usage of carbon, and at the same time increase the amount of recycled content in their glass. And then last but not least, and not mentioned on this slide as it is not part of our glass card portfolio, we also have our glass grade manganese products. It might be a bit technical, but similar as to Benedict, I am also a technical guy. Glass cullet affects the oxidization state of glass, let's say being the transparency or the color of the glass. And these glass grade manganese products enable producers of colored glass, flint glass, but even, let's say, the extra white glass, like the tableware producers, to intake more cullets, while at the same time not affecting the quality of their produced glass, and at the same time even reducing their sulfur emissions. I believe these three pillars clearly demonstrate the continuous investment and improvement done by Sibelco in the glass recycling business.
Brilliant, thank you so much, Ruud. You're a technical guy, but that's good because we're going to have a technical discussion now. All about glass recycling. So, I think what these presentations have shown is that there is a vibrant business out there for glass recycling, and the question is now for the panel, what does that actually look like in practice? You've seen Benedict, Stefano, and Ruud. I will introduce also João Pedro. He is Mine and Cullet Operations Manager for Iberia at BA Glass. So hello, João. I hope the sound is working well.
Yes, everything okay? Hello, how are you?
Brilliant. Yes, all good. Perfect. So we want to go a little bit deeper into glass recycling. And as I've mentioned, we did this study on the performance of packaging glass recycling in Europe. And there's one figure that I would just like to show now, one image that really, I think, describes the challenge of what it's like to recycle glass in Europe. What we see in the image is that 92% of the incoming materials are, in fact, post-consumer glass from municipal waste. So obviously from our sample, but I think it's quite representative given that glass packaging is such a consumer household packaging, and only very little is actually post-consumer glass that is other than municipal waste. So, business type of collection. So 92% of your incoming materials are coming from a notoriously complex, disharmonized, very difficult to work with material stream. So my question to you, and I can maybe start with João, is how challenging is it to work with this material? Can you describe some of the problems that you face there?
So, good afternoon again. This type of materials, we know that has in the last years, it has increased a lot the amount of waste, of urban waste that is present in the glass. So, but for us, it's still the best quality compared to other sources of glass. So despite the increase of urban waste, it remains a valuable resource for us. And in fact, we aspire to increase the glass collection rate and to have more material of this, like this, for our cullet operations. So for us, it's the best type of material. So we wish to have more and more and more. Okay.
I fully understand that you need to collect more and more and more, but what happens when there's not just glass in that material? I mean, when you're dealing with consumers, with households, I mean, it can get a little bit tricky. Maybe Stefano, can you give us a view as well on some of the challenges with that?
Plenty of challenges, I would say, starting from the collection, the way we collect material, and the way the system works in terms of glass collection. First of all, separate material collection is a key. The more we are able to separate glass collected from all other materials, the better will be. Co-mingle collection doesn't help quality. So everything comes to the quality level of what we do collect. Bottle banks is a way to collect, very efficient. From the quality standpoint, quite a high level. Door-to-door system helps quantity, doesn't help quality. So collection systems are the key to collect better and more. But in this respect, when we talk about losses, the quality aspect, the quality side of the story is the most important one.
So, and the different systems, I mean, they're obviously between different countries, you will have different systems, but also within countries, you will have different systems. For Benedict, I mean, you're working a lot with Germany, if I understand. I mean, can you give us a sense there of some of the challenges that you face with the collection systems there?
Yeah, in general, I want to say that Stefano's words go in the same direction. I think with a glass fraction, which comes from a German view, when this material meets the quality criteria, it's pretty good material. So it's very important that at the end it's single stream material. This is a key for a good recycling rate at the end. And of course, we prefer the solution with the bottle bank because of the better quality. And another thing which is very important, that the glass goes to the recycling plant in a best way, so it's not compacted with a collection system. That the bottle stays a bottle until the recycling plant. This is the best way for the recycling. And for example, in Denmark, we have another collection system. They collect glass together with metals. Yeah, and this the problem is that it's a competition on both sides. For the metal side, it's complicated because there is always some glass cullets in the metal, and some metals stay in the glass cullet, and you need a very high performance recycling processing plant to get rid of the metals. So it is very important to have a stream where is only one fraction, only glass collected in one fraction. This is from my side.
And Ruud, I mean, you have the a relatively broad geographical coverage. You must probably be dealing with lots of different collection systems. I mean, do you also see the impact of a system on the kind of quality of the collected material? And can you say something also about the most complex contaminants that you might find in post-consumer municipal waste management for glass recycling?
Yeah, indeed, Jean-Paul. Being active in 6 countries, it means that we also get quite some variation on input material. The majority has already been mentioned. The easiest one is, in principle, let's say the bottle bank collection, the glass collection. It's already a relatively clean flow. It's very coarse glass, so it's also relatively easy to clean. Then you have the co-mingled, as also Benedict already mentioned. You have, for instance, the glass and metal collection together. That already affects, let's say, the particle size of the glass. And in the end, each and every piece needs to be analyzed in our process and then determined, is it good glass or is it not glass and should go somewhere else? And then you have what we call the most contaminated or most commingled way of collection. It's called MRF. MRF is an abbreviation for MRF, standing for Material Recycling Facility. It's a combination of glass, metals, plastic, and paper. which already underwent some processing, meaning the glass is already relatively fine, and therefore makes it a lot more challenging to still produce a furnace-ready cullet. So let's say a cullet which our customers would accept as a good quality to put into their furnaces. And as this material is already relatively fine, it contains a lot more contaminants, as normally the contaminants concentrate itself into the fines, and they make it very challenging for us to still produce a good product. So yes, we do prefer, let's say, a separate collection system, but as it is not always available everywhere, and on the other hand, you also need to make it consumers as easy as possible. We need to look for the right balance, and it will really depend on regional differences, cultural differences, differences in order to, let's say, find the optimum way. I don't believe that there is one solution for all.
Yeah, and to play a little bit devil's advocate on this one, and to bounce back on what you're saying. So the advocates of the commingled collection that would typically go through a material recovery facility, they will say, well, we make it as convenient as possible for consumers, therefore we grow the collection quantity, and then actually the challenge is indeed then for the sorting. That's your job. That's your investment. You need to make something out of it. You should not put that burden on the consumer. And so to come back to Joao's point at the beginning, you want to push up the collection rates. So shouldn't actually the onus of the challenge be on the sorting? Joao, I mean, how much can you actually take on in terms of sorting efficiency, even when dealing with these kinds of collection systems? Joao, I mean, yeah. And a quick unmute. Yeah.
Sorry. I think it's true. That part is with us, the recycling plants, because we cannot ask to the consumer to take out everything that from the glass. So if we do that, what will happen is that the people will not have the trouble to go to the container. They will say, I don't care about this. So we prefer to receive all types of contaminations, and we have to develop the technology and do the investments to take out that contamination. But if we have 100% of the glass that we need to improve our cullet incorporation, so we will for sure increase the cullet incorporation in the recycling, in the furnace. Okay, so for us, it's very important to have more glass. After that, we must take care of the business. It's with us. I think we cannot say to the consumer, please do this for us, because they will not do it. That's, from my point of view, they will not do it. So we have to take care of that on that part from our side. Okay.
Okay, and then there's another point in relation to the diversity of collection systems that often comes up, and I see it coming up also in the chat. So it's the question of color separation. Okay, so how much does the consumer need to do in terms of sorting? Okay, and we see big variations. Some countries go for all colors together. Other countries separate up to 3 different colors at the point of collection. So what would you advocate for in this context? Maybe Stefano first.
But first of all, I didn't mention before, talking about collection, the best way to collect is material separate by the other materials, and talking about glass, collection by color. This is the best way to collect, and Germany and other North European countries are the good example for that. Then we must be realistic. We can't come back to very different system in the future than the ones we have already installed and we have since a while in each country. Meaning that if whatsoever country has all colors collected together of glass, it will be quite difficult to oblige citizens to move from this kind of collection to a color separate collection, not only to citizens but also to infrastructure, to get, let's say, to adapt all systems to collect separate by color. That doesn't mean that being able to sort, for instance, flint color from the mixed color collected would be impossible. No, it's possible. Benedict said before something I fully agree with. The challenge today will be a standard tomorrow. So the technology, which was not able 10 years ago to get such a good result in terms of color sorting, for instance, is today able to do it. And tomorrow will be even better than today. So we must rely on technology development in the future and, by the way, take advantage in real time of these new technologies.
Okay, brilliant. I don't know if maybe Ruud and Benedict, do you have an idea? Would you advocate for a specific color separation, or do you also agree that this legacy investment has to be taken into account, and we also have to work with the systems that are there? Maybe Ruud first.
Well, if you look at the whole value chain, or let's say the whole supply chain of glass cullet, when it's being collected, coming to a glass recycling facility, then being cleaned and going towards a glass furnace, then being a packaging again, so you have the whole loop. Sibelco in principle does not really see added value in the color sorting for the consumer itself. And there are several reasons for that. First of all, our glass recycling facilities are designed to process a mixed feedstock. For instance, if you look at MRF, if you look at commingled collection, it means that the colors are already together and we are able to produce different colors out of that single flow coming in. It also does not reduce any losses of glass if you have one stream coming in, because in the end, the same amount of cullet goes out. And you're even able to increase the efficiency of transport because, for instance, if you have a bottle bank collection where you have a separate flint and color box, it means that those trucks emptying all those bottle banks could be only half filled with flint and color could be completely full. Where if you have one already, everything is combined, you can even optimize the whole transportation, which is also part of that whole value chain of cullet. I think it's mainly what I already mentioned. You need to make it to consumer as easy as possible, but there is a challenge for everybody. And as Stefano already mentioned, we have the Northern Europe has a very good bottle bank collection. I think you will make it easier for the consumer if you make only one entry for glass instead of already making a color differentiation. But next to that, you should have a separate paper collection, metal collection, etc., etc.
Okay, anything to add to that, Benedict?
Really, I think that the collection system from Germany, we have these bottle banks. We have 2 colors or 3 colors. I think the consumer needs an easy way. We need the amount, especially in Germany. So then it is okay in combination. It is possible in a technical way. It is possible to do a full color sorting. This is not the problem. When it's easier from the consumer, then this is a possible way in some countries, of course. Yes.
Okay, I would like to then move on to the other side of the story, right? And I would like to show another visual from the study that basically shows where does the material go. And this is where we see the big impact of the closed loop. We see that 91% of the materials coming out of the facilities are going towards the closed loop. If we can just show the visual, it'll be easier. And this it's a double-edged sword, right? Because I would imagine that the more you try and pull material towards the closed loop, the higher the expectation on the quality of that material. And so my question is there enough market pull in the closed loop to optimize the outputs of glass recycling? Or are we not creating losses because we're trying to get material to the closed loop and we're not always meeting the quality requirements for the manufacturing industry? Is there a risk that if we push too much, we actually create more losses? Effectively is the question. Could I send that one to Stefano first?
Of course, the closed loop application, especially from my standpoint, is the best one. But as a matter of fact, container glass industry also integrates flat glass, meaning that we do a closed glass loop application, but we also use glass coming from other applications. That means on the other way around that I don't see that unrealistic to take advantage of other ways to remelt glass into a new system, meaning an open loop application, flat glass using container glass or using flat glass as well. So I think to make the most of it in the end, we need to open the loop, taking advantage, of course, as a majority of the closed loop, but also take into account that the open loop exists and should exist in the future. This is my answer, my short answer to your question.
Okay, so there is a room for other applications. They play a role. Maybe Benedict, then a reaction to that one. Because I mean you're serving different applications. How does that work in terms of the market pool, and does the market pool create losses?
So from my perspective, I think from the perspective of a glass recycling, I'm quite sure that that this offers enough market pull. I think the recyclers have the opportunities to optimize their processes of glass recycling. And make bring these material to the furnace at the end. So there's the big market pull, and especially there are the needs. But of course, and I'm also quite sure that when there come additional quantities, that these additional quantities also can go in this direction. But of course, there must be some room for other applications, especially when it's a very bad quality in the input. But everything which is possible or technically possible to go to the closed loop must go to this direction. Yes.
Okay, and Joao, I mean, you're talking. You have a starting point in Portugal where there's a big effort to be done on collection. Do you see then that on the side of the manufacturing there is enough, capacity to take on, that extra material, or is it to some extent also explain that that's why there's such a low collection rate in Portugal? Maybe there's not enough market pull. Quick
we have more than the capacity to receive all the closed loop. The problem is that we don't have it, as you know, with 54% or 55% the collection rate. But we think that each industry should be responsible to recycle their materials and to reuse it. It means, for example, in construction, sometimes they use our glass in some applications, and we think that should not happen. So they should use their recycled materials. They should recycle their materials and use it on their own areas. Okay, so for us to create the circular economy, the main thing is every area should be worried with the circular economy of their own areas, and not to take out the glass, for example, from us to put it in roads or to put it in drains and things like that. So for us, if we have more glass, we will recycle more and incorporate more glass in the furnace, for sure.
Okay, and so if I then turn to Ruud, I mean, on your perspective on this, do you feel that there's a big enough space, for cullet to go somewhere with the closed loop?
Well, if you look at glass is used to package great stuff like nice Italian wine, Spanish wine, olive oil. And it's not only consumed in Europe, it's also exported outside Europe. So glass is a product which is in principle not exported out of Europe, meaning there will always be less glass cullet available than compared to the amount of glass which is produced. So that demand will always remain. But with, let's say, we still need to, let's say, find the balance between the requirements and the specifications, and on the other hand, the yield of a glass recycling facility. If you look at the history, glass recycling started a little bit, let's say, producing mixed cullet. But in time, more stringent specifications came, resulting automatically in reduced yields. And I already highlighted a few showcases. Sibelco invests a lot in our glass recycling facilities, but in principle, we generate less available cullet to satisfy the requirements of the glass industry, because with every cleaning step of the cullet, you shoot out a contaminant, but by shooting out a contaminant, you also shoot out glass. And of course, we have recovery lines, but I think we need to work towards a, let's say, a balance between the requirements and the specifications, and on the other hand, the yield of a glass recycling facility, to see where can we find common ground by collaborating throughout the whole value chain in order to bring as much cullet back to the glass industry. And of course, currently also float glass is a big input into the container glass industry, as also Stefano mentioned. But everybody knows that also the float glass is currently looking to increase their external cullet intake. So there will be more pressure also on those flows. And the only solution that I see is by collaborating, and where everybody tries to solve the piece of the puzzle together.
Yeah, and Stefano, you want to jump in?
Yes, I fully agree with Joao when he underlines that one thing is remelting, another thing is all different application from remelting. So when it comes to talk about backfilling, for instance, to me, backfilling is not recycling. This is my personal opinion. This is a simple one-shot recovery. So we should take into account that the best way, and I would say the only way to be really circular economy approach, is to remelt glass into glass, more likely into closed glass loop.
Yeah, and obviously the challenge of doing that when it comes to non-remelt applications in principle is much easier. When it comes to remelt, there are some quality requirements, and it's this balance between the yield that's coming out of the facilities and the overall environmental outcome of the whole process. And this is a complex issue that you're working on. I'd like to then turn to the last part, let's say, of this question around losses, which is the actual losses themselves. Okay, the material that you cannot recycle. Now, this, I understand, will have also its different end destinations. Landfill, maybe some can go to incineration, waste to energy. There might be a couple of options there, but essentially these are going to get more and more tricky, especially landfill. What are your views on landfill, actually, when it comes to glass recycling? Do you think that landfill influences the investments that you're making in glass recycling? Is the cost of landfill going to be, in a way, a problem to invest more in glass recycling because the costs will go up? How do you view this tension also then with the losses that are, in principle, not even glass? They're materials that are non-glass coming into the collection stream and that you just simply have to deal with. Can I go to Ruud first on that one?
Well, I think you can even make it slightly more polarized by, in a few more years, we will simply no longer be allowed to landfill anymore. So it's not only the price, it's simply from a legislative point of view, we're simply not allowed. Meaning that the waste flows which we currently produce, or the byproducts which we currently produce, which go to landfill, will also have to be very clean product flows. And that will be very challenging, because next to producing the current furnace ready cullet, we also need to produce these very clean flows, such as metals. That's relatively easy with some magnets and with some eddy current. We are already able to produce, let's say, high quality metals. Organics, that will be a very challenging one. And I think it will be the challenge in the near future. It's a combination of plastics and paper. It could go to an incinerator, but I also wonder how long that will be possible. And then the third one, which is a well-known contaminant, both for the glass producers, but also within the glass recycling industry, that is the CSP, so the ceramic, stones, and porcelain. If you want to bring that to a specific application, it's not allowed to contain any glass. So the glass is not allowed to contain any CSP, and the CSP is not allowed to contain any glass. That will be very challenging. And again, I think the only way to find good solutions for this is to collaborate throughout the whole value chain, making sure that we already have a relatively clean inflow in our glass recycling facilities. On the other hand, really also discuss with all the stakeholders throughout the process, so also the glass producers, what kind of contaminant is still acceptable for your glass furnace, knowing that your cullet intake will improve over the years. And for that, we simply need to collaborate.
Yeah, interesting take, because that means that the closed-loop recycling system will have its role to play also in terms of offering possibilities when landfill becomes no longer a possibility. Benedict, also, I'd like to hear you on this one, because I think for the next few years this is going to become more and more of a crucial question.
Yeah, of course. Actually, we work in regions where landfill is still not a possibility, or not really, because it has very strict regulations for landfill. I think this differs a little bit, but I think in general, when landfill, it puts some positive pressure on the recycling. But as Ruud said, it is a problem. You need no glass in the ceramics and no ceramics in the glass, and you need these 100%. I always say 100% is very, very difficult in recycling. So this is a very, very hard task we have to solve in the future, and this is not a task the glass recycler have to solve on their own. It has to. We have to discuss with each other to find the perfect solution for this way, and this will be one of the one task for the future to solve it.
Yeah, João.
Yes, this is a very difficult question, because it's true. In Iberia, I can talk about 5 years ago, we can put everything to landfill with a very reasonable price. Now things have changed a lot, and things are not happening like that. So we know our vision is we should establish partnerships with the people that take care of the other waste streams. So we can send them, for example, what we call the organic waste. It's the urban waste, mixed urban waste that always has glass, for example, and they can take out the glass and give it to us, and do the stream for plastics, the metal that exists there, if there's a metal there, paper, and do different streams to minimize, to put at the minimum the landfill usage. For me, it's the only way it will happen, because our business is to recycle glass. Okay, we should not do everything. We should not recycle everything. So we should have the best equipment, the best efficiency in taking out less glass. It's like that. But then we should establish partnerships with other entities that know what they're doing in their own areas. I think that will be the path. That will be the only way we will reduce, for sure, the landfill usage, or stop it. It will be very difficult to stop, from my point of view, but I think it's the solution. Partnerships with the big players to start to do streams for every type of waste and divide it at the maximum. That's my view.
Okay, that might be work for Close the Glass Loop actually as well. Stefano, also your views on this landfilling kind of anti-market pull.
The life for landfilling is just a matter of time. Sooner or later, won't be possible anymore to take advantage of landfilling. So let's think that landfilling is not anymore a solution, and in any case will not be a solution in the future. Starting from collection. We talked about collection, the best way to get the highest quality in collection. Moving on with technology, sorting technology. Once upon a time, equipment machines were not able to detect below 10 millimeters of KSP pieces. Now they get to 2-3 millimeters. So best technology in place to be used. Last but not least, let's take into account that there is additional solution We are also able to grind the finest part of the glass collected to use it as glass sand. So I think in the end, I want to be really optimistic about being able to recycle 100% of what we are able to collect. Just a matter of time, again, we'll get completely our goals.
Okay, brilliant. So that brings us to the killer question. I would like to pull up then the Slido poll. Let's see a little bit what the audience said in terms of answers. Is there a weak point to glass recycling? So we have as the top three answers: poor collection quality. Okay, I think you've described that quite well already. Lack of efficiency of sorting infrastructure, and unreliable data and statistics. That's one also for Oscar. And coming forth, overly stringent manufacturing requirements as well, relatively close. So what we see is that from the audience, collection remains, a key concern when it comes to glass recycling. But there's a couple of steps as well, sorting and let's say manufacturing requirements that can play a role there. So I would like to come back to you all. And I would like your reflection on this question. Is there a weak point? Can I start with Joao first? And I'll give you literally 30 seconds to give me your answer on this.
I have told you that my answer is a different option. It's, for us, we should achieve 100% collection rate. So for us, there's shortage of glass. So any of the answers, we don't choose any of your answers. We choose more glass to recycle. Then we have to sort the problem of landfill, of color separation, everything. That's our problem. Okay, but give us glass, and we give you solutions for sure.
Okay, so improving collection quantity is your weak point on glass recycling.
Yes.
Over to Benedict, your answer.
Yeah, of course. I think in the glass cycle there is only, when we discuss about a weak point, only small ones we have to adjust and to optimize, because all players along the value chain, glass recycling, we do it a long time, and there are a lot of optimizations, but the last percents are very hard to achieve. This is always the problem, and I want to go to another direction. This is the public relation that the people, the citizens, know more how important it is that the glass has to go to the container or to the collection system, whichever they use, and don't go to other waste streams, because then it's very often lost. This is something very, very important, that that they know the collection system. We need the glass in the collection system, and like Joao said, then it goes the way of recycling, and this is important. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Stefano.
Again, the way we collect, the way we sort and we detect materials, and the way in the end we are able to integrate, and there is no technical limit to integrate more glass in our furnace, will be the three keys of the success of the story.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. And Ruud, your answer.
Well, I would prefer to call them challenges instead of weak points. I think Europe is already doing a very good job with more than 80% of the glass being collected for recycling. Indeed, as also Benedict mentioned, that last percent is always the most challenging. But I do believe we need to make it to consumer as easy as possible, but try to get a pure flow into our glass recycling facilities, and that indeed we need to solve the problems of making high quality cullet and trying to process the other waste streams, and also to find outlets for that, because indeed landfill in a few years will no longer be possible. So a lot of challenges for the next coming years.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And I think you've showed a little bit the way forwards here with your different activities and some of the insights that you've provided. And as Close the Glass Loop, I'm sure we'll have lots of opportunities to work on some of the ideas that you've thrown out there. I think particularly this question of partnership with sectors that could usefully make use of what are considered to be contaminants in glass recycling. I think that's a really interesting angle. There's also a comment, in the audience to say, yes, but what are the destinations possible for things like CSP, ceramic, stones, porcelain? How can we develop that? So I think that will be definitely on the agenda. So thank you so much for having taken part in the discussion. Thanks to the four of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So that leaves me with the task to conclude. I will be very brief. As Ruud said, we talk about weak points, but that's just to have a challenging question. As such, I think again in the study we can see, if we can just show one more image from the study, that actually the results are pretty good, to be fair, when it comes to glass recycling. We see that from the sample that we had, 92% of the waste materials coming in are coming from municipal waste, post-consumer municipal waste. So that's a big challenge to deal with that kind of collection. When you look at everything that is actually recycled, well, you see that 92% of the materials are actually recycled. So that's already something that's a very important result. And when you look within that 92% at where the material is going, you see that 91% is actually going to the closed loop. So these are already, I think, major achievements. So probably not so much a weak point, but still a few challenges to just keep this closed loop going. And this is what we're doing at Close the Glass Loop in the platform. So I hope that you'll be able to get involved and help us build these partnerships that we've been discussing today. Finally, then, I would just like to say that this is our last episode for this year, but we'll be back next year. We have 3 episodes planned for 2024. Episode 11 will be on glass collection and recycling on islands, a very specific scenario, but also one that requires a little bit of consideration in terms of transport, for instance, when there are no glass manufacturing operations on islands. It's not always an easy one. We will then have episode 12 on the recycled content of decarbonization, which will be looking at the role that cullet will be playing in decarbonizing the glass industry. And finally, in November, episode 13 will be on bathroom glass. Is it a forgotten asset of the closed loop? I hope that these will be interesting topics for you, that you'll be joining our sessions next year. And as usual, we'll be in touch. Thank you so much for joining. And we'll be sending you all the presentations as usual. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.